Welcome to the Coco Lesa podcast. So yeah, you ready? Ready to kick this off?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coco Lesa podcast.
Hi.
Trash. You got
This is Oka-san.
Hey, that volume, that
Shut up,
presence.
you.
So we want to welcome you guys back. We want to say welcome to everybody that's new and listening for the first time. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank you for how far this has reached. It's so amazing. Welcome Samoa. Welcome Israel. That was wild. Nobody saw that coming. So we're going to be talking about something that's really important to us tonight, and we think it's probably really important to a lot of you.
Yeah, we are talking about poverty.
And this one is going to be a little bit different from how we normally do, because normally we talk about like the way things affect us, how they affect our communities. But I think neither of us, it's not really a conversation that any of us need to be educated on in terms of how it affects us. I think we all deal with poverty in a very real way every day on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, but I think a lot of our own people don't know that this is poverty. They've just lived this their whole life, so it's just their life. It's
No, fair
their
enough.
life, their
You know
parents'
what?
life. It's not a...
I honestly didn't even understand it myself, kinda, until I moved to Aotearoa. And that's because I was living in Welly, and it was when I first moved to Welly, and I was with my best friend from Welly. Shoto says hi, everybody. We forgot to include her intro in the beginning. And we were having a conversation one day, and it kind of just blew me away. And she was talking about how, like, everyone here lives even below the middle class. Like, even a lot of white people aren't in the middle class
Yeah,
here.
we live below the breadline.
And it messed me up because I didn't even get that. I had taken so for granted being upper middle. I didn't realize that middle wasn't even really a thing here for most people, And I think what really...
It's the privilege to be middle class.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I get that. I guess I get that. And I think consumerism is kind of what messes it up for people and distorts it. So it's like, we have big screen TVs and we have cars and all of these other things. So it's like, how could I be poor? How could I be broke?
Exactly.
How could I be living in poverty if I have like an iPhone 7 and 8 and 9? I have all of these nice things in my home. But it's...
And that's how a lot of islanders perceive it. It's like, we're well off because look, we could be doing so much worse. Like,
look at all the flash things we have. But that's how a lot of people of color perceive it. And that's exactly why it is like that, so that people don't know that they're in poverty and they're more like content in it and they're not causing problems.
The visual of poverty for a lot of people is like really
homelessness,
and it's really what they've pushed in like media, like give to the kids in Africa, they're starving, like
the
that
little
kind
pot
of
belly image.
exactly.
Yeah. And but we don't even realize how many of us are living in debt, and it's so normal to live in debt that people don't think of that as poverty. You know what I mean? And we went to a seminar to learn about real estate and things like that. And we for the Rich Dad Poor Dad setup, which we were reading that book, and something that they explain in the book that a lot of people don't know the difference between is assets and liabilities. And in terms of this conversation in poverty, people own a lot of liabilities and they think they're assets, but it's legit things. Like, if you had to sell everything you own tomorrow that you think is like flash and reasons you can't be poor, it would not be enough to pay the rent. And so I think that's part of tonight's discussion, just one differentiating what poverty is. And then more importantly, understanding ways for us to combat and get rid of poverty, and how we can rise out of it as a people, because that's really the only way that you can do it as a people. And it's your people have to do it, for themselves. But also, I'm so excited. Even though this is a hard conversation, I'm so excited about tonight's episode. And the reason for that is because, so currently, you want to tell them about what you're doing this week on Twitter?
Yes, I am on the People of New Zealand account. They have a new person run the account every week pretty much. And it's typically only white people who run the account. So I decided...
Why'd you hesitate so heavy for that? It's okay.
There's typically only Palangi people who run the account. So, I put so I'm running the account this week. If you own a business or you're a Poly startup, Pacifica startup, then hit us up and we'll plug your work to
everybody.
To pretty much
everybody.
It's a big platform. There's about 7,000 followers.
Major platform. But this is part of why I'm so excited, this conversation right here. So what we're going to do for people this week with her having this platform is what we were already planning to do ourselves. So if you don't want it necessarily for people in New Zealand, send it to us. We want to hear from everybody about everything that you do. It doesn't matter if you write music or you do art or you do shipping, any type of business. This is our call. This is our call out to all islanders in every aspect. It doesn't matter what you are, where you're from, Aotearoa, Cali, the Bay, everybody. We want to hear from all of you, no matter where your business is. If you're a Pacific Islander and you own your own business or you're starting your own business, you're trying to get your start, you're trying to grow, you're learning, you need mentorship, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you because we are putting together and compiling the biggest list that we can create of every Islander-owned business we can find. And after we get that list, because what are you going to do with the information? What are we going to do with the knowledge? We, on behalf of Kokolesa and the HOH Collective, we are going to be setting up networking events. On top of the networking events, we're looking at building a bigger platform to have people have a better delivery system for getting their products out, helping people find out about it. So this People of New Zealand is just a small step in a much bigger process that we're getting ready to do, and we're looking to include as many people as possible. So it doesn't even have to be you. If you know someone, if you have a friend or a family member and they have a startup and they have a business that you think is great and more people need to know about and they're just not sure how to get it out there, let us know about it. You have anything else you want to add to that? Not you, your mom.
No, I don't have anything else to add. Just hit us up. And I think we went a little left from the poverty topic.
Well, no. This all still matters to the poverty topic. It's actually super important to the poverty topic. Because even though part of the poverty topic is, again, what it is and how it affects us, for me, the most important part of tonight is ways to eliminate poverty and how we combat poverty. Okay? And so something that we talked about on the Twitter is that, listen, so I've been thinking about this since this weekend, because we had plans to record this weekend, but we're doing it now. So something that we say in New York that applies to Hawaii is we're about that action. And that is definitely true in terms of the HOH Collective and Kokolesa as a platform. We are about that action. So everything that we talk to you guys about is not just theory, it's not just speculation. We are actively working on it, or we're working towards it. So we're doing it already, or we're working on doing it, okay? And so it's not enough to say, oh, well, this is how we could do better with education, and it's just a conversation, and it's not going anywhere. It's not enough to say, this is how we do better with business and get rid of poverty, and it's just a conversation, and we're not doing anything about it. If you have the idea, if you have the effort, if you have the energy, if you have the ability, then you have a responsibility to execute. And so there are a lot of people out there that don't know how to do that, with a lot of these topics that we're covering. And there's people that do and don't have access to as many people as they need to. And so what we're trying to do with this podcast and our company and our projects is to be a bridge with those two groups. Part of building this platform up is so that all of us are more capable and able to reach each other. And it's good that we have social, but sometimes important things like this get lost in all the nonsense of social. It gets lost in all the stupid stuff on Facebook and this person talking about this person. Like, this is about us building for ourselves as a family and as a people and bringing other families into that. You get what I mean?
Not really in how it relates to poverty.
So, for me, this is perfect because I get to explain to them and to you. So, we've already talked about education affecting how long we stay in poverty and things like that. But something that we need to talk about in terms of combating poverty is strengthening our community. How do we strengthen our community and our communities? So, by putting so Dr. Umar Johnson is a person that we both listen to and have a lot of respect for, and something that he really educates African Americans on and black people on is the power of the black dollar. Understanding your caucus, how much power you have as a purchasing group, where your dollars are going to, and the effects that you have on any and every community, including your government, because of your monetary strength. We don't really have that understanding in large levels. So one way that we combat poverty directly is by supporting and growing Pacific Islander owned, created, and operated businesses. The more we help people grow their startups and have startups, the more we can have our people employ our people. The more we're creating jobs and creating revenue, the more we can pour that money back into our own communities so that we can have the funding to have better schools, and we don't have to wait for the government to bring that to our community so that we have DESAR 1 schools and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense now? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, that does make sense.
But it doesn't feel...
But that wasn't really the direction that I was really thinking of when...
No, so go ahead. What's your direction? Let's talk about your direction first. Let's do it.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from. It's like ways that we ourselves can help alleviate our situation in poverty. Right. But when I thought of poverty, this topic, and I knew we were discussing poverty, it was more like policies that the government...
No, see, both of these views are super important.
Currently, the minimum wage is $15. So my view on how we can alleviate poverty or eradicate poverty would have been like...
No, I want to hear it. Don't say would have been. Tell us what it is.
No. Well, firstly, it should be to address the reasons why we're in poverty. And those date back all the way to, like we always say, colonization.
Yeah. Teach us, son. Tell them why you're mad. Teach us. Let us know. No, seriously. Talk about it. Mine is going to be there, so, you know.
Yeah, like the causes of poverty is pretty much dates all the way back to colonization, how the inequality was there.
Right. So what we're talking about now is something that's discussed a lot in the States and especially in the black community, right? So what we talk about is systemic racism. And this applies to us here. And so we say the reason that people of color can't be racist is because racism is a system. Bless you. And it's a system based on systemic oppression, right? So when all of the white people own the jobs and they own the businesses and they own the homes and they own the land, what they say about you, how they think about you, how they feel about you, stereotypes that they perpetuate about you affect your life directly. A white person thinking poorly of you can stop you from getting a job. That's racism. But a brown person thinking poorly of a white person doesn't affect them in any aspect of their lives except their feelings. So this, go ahead.
Yeah, so with brown people have been systemically disenfranchised pretty much.
Yeah.
So when middle class white people, like I've experienced this week on the account, say, oh no, you're just not working hard enough, you're just not working. No, they refuse to acknowledge that there has been.
They refuse. So this is the conversation that we're having about in terms of poverty, because this is where the origins of poverty come from. I feel like when we just say colonization, like people don't really get it. Sounds like all right, just let it go. I feel like white people and brown people, like Palangi, both have that. This was so long ago, just let it go.
I know, it's time to heal, move on.
But it's because we're not properly explaining that this is a it's a system issue that's in place today that still affects us today. And that's why she's explaining to you guys, or coming to you guys with it from that angle, because it's not being able to get good jobs, it's not being able to go into good schools. And this is not just random. This just doesn't happen to us for any reason. It's a result of the communities that we're born into, that we're forced into. The schools the funding is there, but the funding doesn't go there. It's not unilateral. And what that means is it doesn't hit everybody. The best books and the best schools go to the people in the zip codes that have the highest pay rates and things like that. And so, go ahead, you want to continue? I just wanted to explain that.
Yeah, so pretty much we have a biased wealth distribution pretty much that dates back due to the inequality that we've faced. So pretty much those are the causes of poverty. Like, that's how poverty has come to be about. So when, like I said, white people say, no, you're just not working hard enough. When Bill English is like, no, everyone has to work hard to get. No, we're not all on a playing level field here. And it's mainly brown people that are in these impoverished areas.
Yeah, and so again, I think the focus that it's so funny because you were the first one to say it to me, and now I feel like I have to remind you of it all the time. Like, even though it's Kokolesa, even though our main focus is for our PI community, we're talking to all people of color. You know what I mean? All brown people. So this is for us first as Islanders, but it's also across the board. And so we don't want anyone that listens to feel left out.
No, but pretty much all brown people, this is something.
But we're talking, but as an Afro-Latino, I get viewed as a black person because to everybody, I am black, regardless of whether I'm brown or not. And so even a lot of things that we talk about in terms of systems to implement and where we get these ideas from, a lot of it come from the black community. And so I think it's only fair that we address that we're talking to the black and brown community. And even though as Islanders...
Okay, I can agree to that.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But so, and that's not to derail us or take us off track, but I just want to share that community amongst ourselves and just highlight that it is there. We're talking to all of us. But jumping back into the poverty conversation. And so the reason that this discussion is so important, and I think it was really good to hear Okasan's view first, is because I think the best thing about our cast is that it's not just us always echoing and parroting each other. Like, we believe in a lot of the same things, but we want to address them in different ways. And so what she's talking about is super important because the system needs to change. The system is broken, and she is expressing a lot of the ways that we need to start and can approach fixing that in the system. Is that
poverty
accurate?
Exactly. Poverty is such a big, complex issue that needs, like, if you're gonna alleviate it in any significant way, it needs long-term solutions. When you're saying the system needs fixing, that kind of feeds into the whole material too, with the beneficiary side of things.
Right. And somebody was saying today on Twitter how it's so insane and so stupid that someone lying to get more because they need more and have no other way to get it is a crime.
Exactly.
But so here's the difference, right? And both points are valid. The way that she's talking about is very realistic, but the difference is I don't believe in the system. on top of not believing in the system, and I think I will say honestly,
I'll just say I am speaking from the layman.
Right. I think
everyday,
and I will address that. Part of my view comes from my privilege and the place that I've lived in, and my family's reach and what we've had and what we've been able to provide and do for ourselves and our people. So I do understand that part of my view comes from a place of privilege. That being said, the reason that I'm approaching it from the angle I'm approaching it from, I guess there's no better way to say it. I don't give a fuck about no white people, and I don't want a goddamn thing from them. And so my mindset is always going to be do for self. It's like we talked about in the education episode. She made fun of me after the episode because she said the way I talk about Minister Farrakhan is like my father this and my father that. You know, so if that's the case, fuck it, I'm going to claim it. I'm my father's son, if that's the case. And my father taught me to not want a goddamn thing from white people ever. One of the things that you'll see if you look at my Twitter is I work my hardest every single day so my daughter never has a white boss. Okay? And the reason that we need to educate ourselves and understand our importance and our power and our ability is because until we have that understanding, then we can't do for ourselves. And we as a people need to stop waiting for other people, especially Palangi and white people, to do right by us, because that's a long wait on a train that doesn't come, in my opinion. Okay, so we need to strengthen ourselves and grow ourselves and our businesses and our community and build for ourselves, because just like my father said, the point of the conversation is how long are we going to wait for other people to do for us what we have the power to do for ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's really the difference between our two views. You want the people that owe us and have grown fat and rich and strong and powerful off of our labor and our work and taking and stealing from us to give us what they owe us, pretty much. And I get that, and I totally respect that. I'm just trying to make a real big ass sharp stick that's made out of metal and then take it from them by force. And I'm trying to take it from them the way they've been taking it from us from so long, with education, with money, with business, with paperwork, with lawyers. You know what I mean? I want to have good, strong businesses. And then because this is what people do. Like one of the groups that I love so much in the world, and this sounds like it's a tangent, but just follow me, right? One of the groups that I love so much in the world is the Yakuza. The Yakuza, for those of you who don't know, is effectively the Japanese mafia. They are the kings of organized crime in Japan, right? And so of all the gangs in the world, the Yakuza, is my turn to speak. Of all the gangs in the world, the Yakuza are actually rated as the best organized crime organization at generating revenue. They are the best money makers in the world. Do you know what all of the top Yakuza men and bosses and even their middlemen do once they start getting money and wealth?
What?
They send their kids to the best private schools and buy them the best educations that money can afford, so that once they die, their families are completely legitimate and their kids own all the businesses and all of this, and nobody ever has to be a gangster in their family again. Mm-hmm. We have missed the boat on a lot of things. And so our time right now, our generation, our responsibility is to be business owners and innovators and creators and things like that, so that her generation, our children, can be the largest, most educated group in Aotearoa, in the next generation, so that they know what to do with the money, with the privilege, and how to make it better. Because part of the bumping heads with this that we have when it comes to our parents, and even when it comes to us, and see, it's different from me being from Hawaii, being from the mainland, and you being from here, because, not even slandering you again, but I think something that we bump heads on is that there's a lot of things that I say, and you're like, all right, but that's not doable right now. That's not realistic right now. Like, I feel like you have a harder time investing in tomorrow because you're like, we need to get out of right now. But I feel like,
but that's a lot of
no, and I get that, and I understand that, and that's why your view is always super important when it comes to these topics. But part of us getting out of this situation right now is believing we have the ability to. And a lot of people don't believe they have the ability to. And so for them, planning for 5 years from now is like planning 100 years from now. Planning for 5 weeks from now is like planning for 5 years from now.
Because like I've said before, we don't have the privilege to generational think.
I get that, but that's not even, most people
2 months in advance,
right?
Much.
But this is like the conversation that Bob said, where he was laying next to bed in Yvette at night, and she said, "What's your 5-year plan?" And he said, "I don't know. I don't have one." And she said, "I'm trusting you with my life and the future of my family, and you don't have a 5-year plan?" And she just rolled over and went to sleep. But that changed that man's life. This is why this conversation is important. Because we have to provide, one, the knowledge that you need to have a 5-week plan, a 5-month plan, a 5-year plan.
We're slowly getting there,
right? But it's not enough to tell people that you need to have that. We also have to say, all right, well, if we're doing this and we have this, then here are the steps that you can take to get it. Because what happened to me for so long in the years that I've been working on building and creating and being an entrepreneur and a business owner is I knew I wanted it. I knew I had to get it. I didn't know the how. And so we also, even if it's not realistic for everybody, even if it's not doable for everybody, we have a responsibility to educate people on the how. Because until you know the how, it's just a pipe dream. And if it's a pipe dream, you're not going to invest in it. We have to let people know that this is realistically doable and achievable.
We're slowly getting there.
Who?
Pacific Islanders.
Right, I know, but this is, again, the point of this
platform. Efessel Collins, he's a politician. He's Tongan. I think he's Tongan. But he made a really good point to say when pretty much our parents' generation came over, the dream, like they did have a goal. The dream was just to work, send money back. And then when they're kids, the dream was get education, get an education. That was the dream. Get an education, become lawyers, doctors, like become
right.
of power. So and now that we're there, we have lawyers, doctors, accountants.
Now it's the next step.
The next step. He was saying, and I agree with him, he said, the next step is to build our own businesses, to build...
And that's what I'm saying. That's this conversation that we're having.
So what I'm trying to say is that we are slowly getting there, but look...
I'm not saying that we're not there at all. I'm not saying that at all. But what the two things... The reason I'm saying this, it's one thing to hear it from your parents. It's another thing to hear it from your peers. Okay? There are a lot of people that... One, don't feel like they're in a place to hear that shit at all right now, but even if they are, it depends on who's telling it to you. So if your parents are telling you this and they don't know how to talk to you, because it's not about how to talk to you, it's about you listening and hearing what they have to say, and you're already past the point in your life when you're gonna do that. Even if you're hearing a good thing, you're not listening to it. So it's dope that our parents' generation is saying that, and some of the older people in our generation are saying that. That's not a reason for us to not say it. That's not a reason for us to not discuss it. This conversation still needs to happen. One doesn't invalidate the other. They all work together and grow each other. That's like I was talking about with the school conversation and the pride and how, I'm this, so I'm not going to do what somebody else is doing. No, it all matters. Talking about this doesn't take away from anybody else talking about it. Shit, that means we can all talk about it together and spread it to more people.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Okay, so no, and that's what I'm saying, because like the way you came at that was kind of like, well, no, it's not. No, I'm not saying nobody's talking about this. I'm just saying, listen, even if they are talking about it, it's still important that we talk about it so people can get it from different angles. And again, that's them saying this exists, but we're providing. It's like, how do I put this? It's like a barrel full of apples, right? If we look in the barrel and there's 6 apples there, a lot of people are like, well, fuck it, there's apples there already. We're good. You know what I mean? The apples go in themselves. It's the everybody conversation. The everybody, somebody, nobody. Everybody sees apples, so we all assume somebody's putting them in, so nobody does it because everybody thinks somebody's getting to it. Nah. Just because there's apples in it doesn't mean there's not room for our apples. So we have to keep putting so many apples into the barrel until there's no water left. And then everybody can have one and everybody's eating. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure everybody's eating. Because if everybody's eating, poverty is a conversation we talk about one day about this thing that used to affect us.
Yeah.
That's I don't know, that's my angle. That's where I'm coming from with it, and that's what it is. You watching in time, but you have this I don't know, you have anything else you want to add on it?
Because poverty is such a big topic, it's such a big complex issue,
right.
And the way you see it is, oh, what can I do right now to like alleviate my situation? But that being said, the government is obligated,
right?
This is a social cause, like
I get you.
For like economic growth. There needs to be some eradication of poverty for there to be...
Right, and this is why our forum matters so much. Because there are tons of academics and things like that are already talking about this and working on this. So now we can get out there and we can get connected to people again through our platform, and we can let people know about rallies, and we can start rallies and things like that. So this is us again working on it from both angles. This is us having the ability to work on it from both angles. We want to hear from you guys. We want to know if once you listen to this episode, do you want to hit us on our social? Hit us on Twitter, hit us on Facebook, hit us on IG. Do you want to hear more about this topic? Do you want us to do another episode on this next week discussing these things? Please, again, don't forget to send us information about your businesses. Let us know for people of New Zealand. Let us know for us and helping people grow and all the things that we're working on. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Kokolesa. Alofatu. We love you guys. We really appreciate Happy Tonguing Language Week. Malo for coming by. We appreciate it. We appreciate your energy. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being part of this. Welcome and coming into our home and being with our family. And on that note, we're going to go for the evening, but we will be talking to you guys soon. Thank you for joining us.